We're on Yud.
Mm-hmm.
Beitzah Yud. So tomorrow we will learn in shul, and then we'll learn at 8:30 at night after Motzei Shabbos.
Okay.
No, it's low. But Beis Shammai says if the shovel was not in the ground, you can't do the kisui adam. Or inami adkam like kami Beis Hacha elakim de muktzah. Since we're dealing with muktzah, which is only a rabbinic isser, and we're talking about a case where prior to Yontif, he goes and he designates which birds he's going to shecht. He doesn't have to. Beis Shammai said you have to actually pick them up and touch them. Beis Hillel said it was enough to just point at them. So Beis Hillel holds, but oimed v'oimer zevzani noitel sagi. That's enough. Designation, verbal designation is enough. Aval hasam. But when there was by Kisui Adam, where there was an Isser min Torah to do Ketisha, he didn't allow it. So Ela'i kasha hakasha. The Gemara is struggling. They had a Mesorah. There was some kasha regarding Beis Shammai, but now they rejected this version of it. So the Gemara says, you know what? If there was a problematic issue, this was the issue. Beis Shammai oimrim a noitlin es ha'ali. Lekatzev alav basar. An ali is something that was used to chop wheat on. And an ali, that would be muktzah. Now, normally it's used to chop wheat. Beis Shammai says not only, even though its normal designated use is not to chop meat, he was machmir by muktzah to say that you couldn't even use it to chop meat, even though meat is something that you're allowed to do on Yontif. Ubeis Hillel matiri. Well, this is Alma Gabi Simchas Yontif Beis Shammai lechor Beis Hillel kula. This seems to be an example where Beis Shammai
Get Erev Shabbos.
regarding Simchas Yontif is more machmir.
אני רק בדף יומי שיהיה, אבל דיברתי.
V'reminu Hashoichet Chayva of Beis Shammai allows you to shecht and cover the blood. So l'chora Beis Shammai is more lenient. On Rav Yochanan Muchlef is Shita. You have to switch the Shita around to say that Beis Shammai is consistent. Freit Gemara Mimai, why do you have to switch the Shitas? Dilma Loi. Maybe you don't switch the Shitas. Ad kan like Beis Shammai Hasam. When is Beis Shammai lenient regarding Simchas Yontif? Alahecha deker notes, because he had a shovel already in the ground. Aval hecha deker notes low. You wouldn't allow it. So you see, he is machmir by muktzah. He's consistent. Inami ad kan like Beis Hillel ela dehecha ikators kliyala. You know why Beis Hillel here is more lenient? Because it's a kli. It's not a big stretch to say you'd be allowed to use it on Yontif. Aval Hasam, but by the Isser Deraisa of Kisui Adam with Ketisha, that's why he says you're not allowed to. Ella, Ikasha Hakasha. I'll find you this problem. Let's say you shechted an animal on Yontif and you have the hide. You're not allowed to spread the hide in front of people who step on the hide because it's like a tanning, it's part of the tanning process. Not only that, it's muktzah, unless it has at least kazay's basar still attached to it. Beis Hillel matirim, and Beis Hillel are matir. Alma gabi simchas yontif Beis Shammai lechor Beis Hillel kula. Again, we see example where Beis Shammai seems to be more machmir. And V'reminu will ask you a kasha from our case of Kisui Adam. Hashoichet chayvav beyontiv Beis Shammai allows you to do Kisui Adam. On Rav Yochanan Muchlevas Hashita. Rav Yochanan says in the Kisui Adam, so you have to switch the shitas. Where says Mimai? You have to switch the shitas. You know how to resolve this? Dilmaloi ad kam lekari Beis Shammai hasam. You know why Beis Shammai is lenient over there to heichel the ikadeka noros, because there was a shovel placed in the ground prior to yontif. Aval heichel the lekadeka noros, he didn't allow you to do it, or vice versa. You know why Beis Hillel is lenient regarding a hide? Because you can lie down on a hide. It can be used as like something to lie down on. It's got a use. Aval hosam, but by kivsiyadam low. So kasha hakasha. If you want, I'll tell you the problem is like this. The markets or the stores had like movable doors, that covered the windows.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't allowed to remove them on Shabbos or Yontif. It looks too much like bonet. Beis Hillel matir maf lachzir. Beis Hillel allow you to take it down and even put it back. Again, it seems Beis Shammai is machmir, Beis Hillel is mekel for a minu. But what about the price of Ashrei Chayav of Yontif, where Beis Shammai is mekel and Beis Hillel is machmir? So Bishma Beis Shammai like kasha asam decker notes. There's a special reason why he was matir there, because there's a shovel in the ground. Hacha here lekadeka notes, and therefore to him it looks like you're building. And the Beis Hillel like kasha. Rav Yechon again, Rav Yechon says you have to switch the shitas. Or Inami, you could answer that you don't have to switch the shitas. Ad kan lekar Beis Hillel hacha elam shum de ein binyan bekeli ven steer bekeli. These trasim, the reason he permits you to put it back, it's a kli. It's something that closes off a window. It's a kli. It's not binyan. There's no binyan by kalim. Aval hasam, but there's no by simchas yontif there by the kisei adam. There's no special dispensation. Lo. So therefore we resolve the steers. Mishnah. If you want to go take a bird from the birdhouse on Yontif, you'd have to have gone there Erev Yontif, picked up the bird that you want from Erev Yontif, make it muchan. Then when you show up the next day, you can take that bird and shecht it. Beis Hillel does not require a physical act. You can stand in front of the bird and say, I'm going to take that bird. In the science of bird breeding, they would leave the original pair, the breeding pair, they would leave that in the dove cote and not use them. So there's a machlokes. The Beis Shammai Savri Gazri and Dilma Asi L'Meluchi. We have him pick those birds up, because otherwise he will decide to leave them there, and he's not going to have meat muchan, and he's going to be mizbatel from Simchas Yontif. So you have to do a physical act. Beis Hillel Savri Lo Gazrinan. We're not worried that he's going to regret saying it. Designate them verbally is enough. But in the rest of the birds, even Beis Shammai says, you don't have to do a physical act. Just standing there and say, I'm going to take those, that's enough. Why do you sort of have to point at the bird and say from this and from this? From this window where these birds live, I'm going to take. Why does he have to be mafaret which specific birds? Maybe you'll tell me, Breira is our old friend, retroactive designation. Maybe Beis Hillel doesn't accept this concept that after the Maisa of taking the birds on Yontif, it was Huvver Hadavar L'Mafreya, that was his reasoning from the beginning. So to say Mikanani Noitel is not enough, because he doesn't hold of Breira. But Vatnat, I'll show you in the Mishnah, he does hold of Breira. Hameis babayis. You have a corpse in the house. Now, a corpse fills the house with tumah. Not only that, any door that the mace potentially could be taken out of that room also becomes tumah. So if the room has, or the house has psachim harbe, kulan tmeim, all the doors become tumah. Niftach echad mehem. If one of the doors was open, so it's mistama that the mace is going to be taken out of that door. Hu tameh v'kulan toharim. It saves the other psachim from becoming tummy. Let's say they were not open, the doors, but he had a machshava to take it out through one of the doors. O b'chalon, through a window sheyesh bo arba l'arba. Also, machshava alone, matzelas al kol hapsachim kulan, also saves the other entrances from becoming tummy. Beis Shammai oimrim, v'hu shechishev lahotzio ad shliyamus hameis. The mace is still alive. He's a goses. At that moment, prior to his death, he already has to be thinking, when he dies, I'm going to take it out. Because the Tumah, Beis Shammai is not going to hold of this retroactive breira. Beis Hillel holds of breira. Even after the death, at the time when it was Hurver, which Pesach to take it out, so that's going to be the Pesach. So we see Beis Hillel holds of breira. So Ha'it bar lo amar Rabba l'tar sapsochim mikanu la'aba. No, it's not complete breira, because the way it was explained, it's only from that moment on. In the future, is it going to be Torah? But in the past, he doesn't go backwards. So you haven't proved from this Mishnah retroactive designation. So Rava explains, no, Beis Hillel would retroactively say that they're Torah. Why here do we say Mikano Laba? Dilma metaltel v'shavik. By the birds were, because maybe if he is required to be metaltel them, he's gonna eventually come back the next day and be metaltel v'shavik v'kom metaltel mit l'chazilei. He's going to end up touching things that were not really his to touch because they were muktzah. What do you mean? I thought Beis Hillel doesn't require you to touch them. It's just enough to say it. That's if he showed up Erev Yontif to make the designation. If he comes to choose on Yontif which bird he's going to take, and he did not designate from the day before. Just he was soymech on the day before. He said to himself, Erev Yontif, you know what? I'm going to check all of them the next day. The zimna de mishtach shmein chushim. Problem is he's going to find fat birds and thin birds. Chushim shmein. He's going to talk to me the lechazilein. Really, the thin ones he doesn't want, so they're muktzah. You'll find them all small. He'll leave completely and not take any of their birds. That's because he showed up Yontif without doing anything Erev Yontif. He probably said to himself the day before, there's got to be at least 2 or 3 good ones. When you make him show up the day before to be boirer, so he's not relying on anything. He's relying on what he designated. Period. Mishnah. The day before, he designates black birds. And then he comes the next day, umatza levanim. He only finds white ones. So we say, Rashi says, Vaday hamezumonim halchu lahem. The ones that he chose must have flown away. And these are new ones that came from the rest of the world. Levanim umatza shchorim. Same thing if he chose white and found black. Shnayim umatza shlosha. For example, if he Erev Yontif, there were two birds there, and now there's three. So Rashi says we assume that the original two birds flew away, and these are three new ones. It's not like one flew there. They're all usher because they're all muktzah. However, shloisha umatza shnayim mutarim. If Erev Yontif he found three, and now when he comes Yontif he finds two, so that's okay because we assume one of them hopped away. We don't say because one left, all of them left. And
Can he eat the black one?
there are no black ones here.
No, I'm saying, but the changed, the color changed. So
Yeah. No, if he designated a blackbird Erev Yontif, he saw a blackbird there. Now he shows up Yontif, there's only white ones. He can't eat them. That's muktzah. We assume that
I understand, but yeah, one of them changed.
no, it's not they changed. The number changed.
Oh,
There
the
were
number.
the number shloisha umatza shnayim.
Okay.
Right. There were three birds Erev, and then now he comes and he says two. Well, from the way the Mishnah's been learning, maybe since there's a change, maybe all of them flew away and these two are new ones, and he can't eat any of them. So the Mishnah says, no, one of the birds hopped away, and the remaining two are the original that he designated. Those he can eat. Now, b'tocha kain u'matzlef ner kain, when he went to Erev Yontif, he found them within the nest.
Why don't we say that two? Why don't we say with 2 and 3? If there was 3 before Yontif and he found 2, why don't we just say instead of new ones come in, why can't you say that the third one just left and he has those 2, and then it goes after Rove? The Rove would be, the 2 doves, and he found, and he found.
Because
the 2 were there, but the third one
because that's the
flew
chiddush.
away.
Because that's the
Why do we
chiddush. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. That if you started off with 2 and you find 3, we don't say a svara. Oh, one bird flew in, and the remaining 2 are the original ones. Even that, Alan, would be problematic because you have no way of knowing which one is which. You still wouldn't be able to eat any of them. But that's not what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says they all
Rove.
flew away.
After Rove.
No,
I know.
we don't go after.
I know. I say that, but that's.
We don't go after Rove. And Rashi says, and he doesn't recognize them. We assume that the original, all of them flew away, and these are new ones. But not the case of Shlosha Matzah Shnayim. There Rashi says, Echad Holach, Vashnayim Nisharu. You don't say because one went, they all left. That we don't say, that far we don't say. Then we say, if you found the birds Erev Yontif B'tocha Kain within the nest, and now when you come Yontif Umatzlef Ner Kain, now they're in front of the nest, Asurim. Because again, we say that these are all new ones. All of them flew away, and these are new ones. V'mein sham elahem. And if there's only, let's say, you don't see any other birds anywhere else where they could have come from somewhere else, so then you can eat the birds. If there's no other birds in a nearby dovecote or birdhouse, so then you have no breira. Well, where did they come from? It must be the original birds. So the Gemara says pshita. If you designated a black bird and you show up the next day and you see a white bird, well, of course it's not this. It's a dover pashut that it's not the one he prepared for. What kind of chiddush is that? Erev Yontif, he had chosen black ones and white ones. Now there's no white ones at all. Or or there's only white ones and no black ones. Ma'od is saying, Mahani inu ninu. Listen, the ones that he designated are still there. Visapucha, isapucha, new ones joined them. Kamash Malan, Hanech Azdul. No. The Mishnah is teaching us that we have to assume that all the original birds flew away. Vahani achrinu ninu. And these are all brand new birds. And even though, for example, Erev Yontif, you chose black ones and white ones. And now there's no more white ones. There's only black ones. But you'll say to yourself, well, I designated the black ones. I'm going to take them. The Chiddush is these are new black ones. If the white ones are gone, must be the black ones went with them. And these are new birds that have taken residence in this birdhouse. That's what the Gemara is teaching us. Lema Messiah Rav Chanina. Let us say that this teaching supports Rav Chanina, Dam Rav Chanina. We have a concept of rov and karov. If you're analyzing something, and on one side, let's say in a nest, there's a black bird, and nearby are 100 black birds in another dovecote. But close by is something else, right? There's an opposite chazaka of karov. So if you have rov and karov, halach achara rov. If you have the two competing chazakas, we follow rov. Rashi, in Baal Ma'aseh Lefanenu, v'yesh l'tlosa b'dover ha'karov lo lahatir le'asor. There's a reason to be either matir or to say it's usher based on something that's close by. But yesh l'tloso achar rov l'nyan acher. Chiluf ha'karov, which is opposite. Let's say the one that is karov is white, and the one that is rov is black. We say halakha achar rov. Our mission is the same thing. If you went Erev Yontiv and you found black birds and white birds, and now you come back and you see black birds, well, maybe we should go. The shchoirim were there, and so we would say karov, they're close by, they didn't have to go very far. But the rov of the birds outside, we go after rov. We don't say karov. So perhaps our mission is supporting Rav Chanina. So the Gemara says no. Kidam Rabaya B'daf. Our case is not that you're finding them in the nest. That these birds there's like a board. Think about a birdhouse, and then there's a little board that sticks out where they can stand on it. And we're finding these birds on this little piece of wood that sticks out of the birdhouse. Now, many times other birds fly and land to rest on that board. So that's why if we find different birds on the board, we don't use this debate between Rav and Karov. They're both considered kroivim, right? Because it's not that they're coming from the rest of the world, they're coming from the board. Then we said, Shnai u'matzah shloisha asur. Erev Yontif, he found 2. And then the next day comes, there's 3. We say all 3 are asur. And there's a manavshach. So if the original 2 flew away, and these are all 3 new birds, well, they're all 3 new, they're achrinu. They're not the ones, they're not muchad. And here's what Elazar was saying. If there were 2 birds, and now there's 3, and the original 2 were there, and 1 bird has joined them, so So there's now a oserdika bird, mu'uriv, and you have no way of identifying which one is which.
Because
And there's no bittul by a barrier, right? It's a davar chashuv, it's a barrier. So there's no, if you have a korban chatas that got mixed up in a herd of 1,000 cows, all 1,000 are osir. Because there's no bittul by a barrier like that. Okay. But then the Mishnah said, Shloisho motzah shnai mutar. If Erev Yontif there were 3, and now you come Yontif, there's 2. So there we do say that one of the birds hopped away. My timer. Hani inu ninu. The 2 are part of the original 3. V'chad minayu azalam, one of the birds flew away. Lema masnis and Rebbe hivelo rabbana. So let us say that our Mishnah is Rebbe, not the Chachamim, the Tanya. Hiniach mana umatzah masai. Person had $100 worth of Meiser Sheni money in a place, in a corner. Comes back and he finds 200. Chulanu Meiser Sheni muravin zebezeh. We don't say that the original bag of money is away, and this is now $200 brand new. We say that the Meiser was there, and somebody came and saw, oh, this is a good place to hide money, and he put his bag there, and it's chulin because rov is chulin. So we say it's a chulin and Meiser together, which has to be treated a certain way. So Rashi says, "Any of the is a noitel ayofet sheben ve'oimer im zui shel meiser yofet im cholani ve'tem leha." So there's a mechanism by which he can use it. You got to go through that mechanism. The chachamim ayim hakol chulin. So chachamim say no. There's a change in the status quo. You had a bag there, now there's 2 bags there. We'll see in a minute whether it's 2 different bags, whatever. There was 100, now there's 200. We have to assume someone took the original 100, and that person or a third person showed up and put 200 there.
Why is this not considered like a barrier? It's the same thing. You don't know which is which. You have no way.
No, we're not using bittul here. There's no bittul. The only reason I mentioned Barry over there is we said that if you had 2,
right,
then you found 3, mimanashech, you're gonna have a problem. Because even if the 2 were the original ones you designated, and now there's a third one there that joined it, though that one was not muchan, so now there's a mixture between 2 that were muchan and 1 that was not muchan.
and this
and
is
no
even
bittul.
this is even worse because you've got two mixed up and it's a rob. It's 50-50.
But Chachamim say, because there's a change in the status quo, there's no Meiser there. The original one is gone. Someone picked it up, and a new person deposited 2 there. And therefore, there is no bittul because the Meiser is not there. According to Rebbe, we assume that the one he put there remains, and there's a new one there that's chulin, and there's a way to use it. You don't have to use bittul. Rashi goes, you have to make a t'nai.
Okay.
You have to mind it up. While Chachamim say none of it is there, it's all new. And that's how we're going to try to connect it to our Mishnah.
Okay.
Now, hiniach masayim umatzamana. What if the original guy, he left, there were 200 that he left, and now there's only 100. So mana munach umana mutol divrei Rebbe. One of them is the one that he had put. Remember, he put 2 there. So we assume again that one of them is his original one, and maybe one of them was taken away. That's the way Rebbe learns. The Chachamim hakol chulin. We say this is not what the original guy put there. He must have taken both of them. And the fact that there's a mana here, somebody else brought it. And there's no connection to what was there before. So it seems like our case of the birds is like Rebbe regarding Meiser, and not like the Chachamim. Because we said Shloisha U'Matzah Shnayim Mutarim. Even though there's a change in status quo, we went from 3 to 2. We don't say like the Chachamim, oh, they all went away and these are brand new 2 ones. The Mishnah held the original 2 were there, 1 hopped away. So the Gemara wants to say our Mishnah must be Rebbe, not the Chachamim. Or it says Afilu Tema Rabbanan. There's no proof. Perhaps the Rabbanan here of Mana Muta, Mana Muta is they could hold the same thing, they could hold a different shita by the birds. Because Hi Itmar Allah Rabbi Yechim Rabbi Lazar Tarvayu. Rabbi Yechim Rabbi Lazar explained, Shiny Goizalo is Hoyel Vasuin Ledadois. Listen, case of birds is different than a sack of money. Birds are alive, they can jump. So you have a svara. If you start off with 3, you only have 2 now. It's a svaradik that one of them hopped away. You can't say the same thing by money. They don't move by themselves. It had to be another person who came. Now, if another person came and he originally deposited 2, originally there was a 2 deposit and he was only left with 1. So you have to imply that the guy who came and took it, because sacks don't move by themselves, he only took 1. He left 1. That's Rebbe. The Chum doesn't say that. Well, if a person comes, he's going to take all of it. So 2 different machloiksim, because one can move, the other can't. The Lama Lilishnui Allah, the Gemara doesn't accept this. Shani goizolos hoyvas unedadois. Why do you try to make a distinction? And you say that because the birds hop. The ha'itmar Allah da'id Rav Yechim Rabbi Lazar Chad Amar b'shnei kisin machlokas. Now we go a little deeper into the case that the machlokas between Rebbe and the Chachamim is only when there are 2 different sacks. There were 2 sacks, 2 money sacks, and each mana was in its own sack. So then there's a machlokas that there the Chachamim will say, Rebbe will say, well, a guy could still come and only take 1 of the sacks. And the Chacham will say, no, he'd take both of them. But even Rebbe will agree that if he had 200 in there originally and now there's only 100 left, everyone's going to hold that the guy took the whole thing. He's not going to take half of the money that was in one of the bags. He's going to take all of it. And then that which is here is a new bag, a chulin bag. So that's what Rabbi Yechim and Rabbi Lazar argue. One of the Amoraim say that's the version of the machlokas. V'chad amar b'kis echad machlokas. No. I could describe the machlokas even in 1 bag. Aval b'shnei kisin, even there, the Chachamim will be moided to Rabbi Divrei Kol Manamunach Umanamuta. So Bishul Bandar Bishnei Kisin Machloikas. I understand very good about when the Machloikas is about 2 bags. So now I understood then why eventually the Gemara had to explain why there's a difference regarding the birds, because birds are 2 different things, 2 different elements, not 1. And that's why there's a shinui between birds that can hop away and a bag that cannot, has to be taken by someone. But according to the Amoira that held that the machlokas between Rabbi and the Rabbanon was even in 1 bag, but there was no machlokas, then why you wouldn't have had to answer the way we did that birds hop. The 2 birds are like 2 bags of money, and there's no machlokas between them. So you would have had to come up and say, oh, the way we reconcile is because birds are different. No, there's no machlokas according to that version. So it's a kasha on the Amoira that learns that the machlokas is only b'kis echad. Very strong kasha. Amar Rav Ashi, No. Hacha begoizolis mekusharim. Nikisi mekushar maskina. In our case, we were talking about birds that were tied together, pair of birds tied together. And the bags were tied together. Goizolois, since they're alive, they jump around. Minat qiyadadi, they untie the rope that was tying them together. And therefore, one of them could have hopped away. Kisin don't move. Lo minat qiyadadi. And therefore, it's clear that the person who took them took the whole thing because they were connected. That would be problematic for Rebbe. How could Rebbe say mana munach mana mutal? If they're tied together, why would the robber or why would the guy who took it cut the rope between the two bags? He would have just taken both bags. How could Rebbe say, oh no, one of them is the original one? So Rebbe Aruch Kisinami Zimdin Misakel Katrayu. Sometimes, a bag, because maybe people bumped into it. You can also say that perhaps the rope that tied them together got loose, and the one who took it maybe didn't find them tied and took only one of them. Okay. Very
Okay.
interesting Gemara.
Yeah.